Poland is once again the VNL champs, and I don't think anyone is surprised, right? I think, there may be some disappointed United States fans or some Japanese fans or maybe some Italian fans, but other than that, I don't think anyone's surprised that Poland is now back-to-back VNL champions, winning their third gold medal in 4 years. Poland took down the United States 3-2 on Sunday to grab their third gold in 4 years, with the MVP going to Mr. Tomasz Fornal. And now they are hands down the most winningest VNL team of all time. They were previously in a three-way tie for first alongside France and Russia with 2 gold medals, and now they sit alone in number 1 with 3, and they also have the most medals of all time with 7 total medals. They've medaled at 7 of the 8 VNLs all time. Crazy. In fact, when you look at it, other than missing out on the medal round in 2018, Poland has medaled at every single VNL for 6 years straight. Wild. And now this was hands down one of the more entertaining VNL finals we have seen in a long time. This was a 5-set banger. It's been a long time since we've seen a 5-set banger in the final match. Then also the USA against Japan semifinal, which in my opinion was the best match of this year's VNL, was another 5-set banger. And also, before we get into breaking down these matches, shout out to Ningbo China, who really did a good job hosting this final match. The court looked fantastic. The lights in the hall looked great. It was packed with fans the entire time. The entertainment looked good. The production of the award ceremony looked great. I mean, I thought these vertical video pillars looked awesome. And overall, it looked just like a really well executed final. So shout out to the promoter in Ningbo, as well as the Volleyball World operations team for crushing it. And now looking at this final, this was really exciting. And honestly, the United States did a lot better than I thought they would do. Not that they don't have the roster to be able to compete with this Polish team, who are an absolute juggernaut at this point, but Poland won their semifinal easily against Slovenia. It was an easy 3-dong. Slovenia didn't even make it over 20 in either of their sets, and they played much earlier than day compared to the United States, who went to 5 against Japan in an absolute banger of a match. And they definitely didn't leave the arena until like 11 or 11:30, and then still had to do all of those things to be able to get ready for a final less than 24 hours away. So I thought fatigue was going to be a massive factor in this one. And I do think it was in that 5th set. We saw the U.S. kind of unravel in the 5th, but down the stretch, the U.S. made it really, really interesting. Had Poland on their heels. They were up 2-1, but this Polish team, man, it is just so talented. This roster is so stacked. It is so deep. And that's really what we saw from this Polish team in this one. They just overwhelmed the U.S. with so much talent. And in the first set, it really looked like Poland was going to take it. It really did. It really looked like Poland was going to be, just a 3-dong, nice and easy. They were all over the U.S. And in the first set, I mean, the Americans could not really figure out their offense. They had just 22% efficiency in that first set. Jake Haynes struggled. He was 2 for 7 with a 0% efficiency. Also, Ethan Champlin didn't look like he was going to be able to hang with the big Polish block in front of him. He was 1 for 6. And it really looked like Poland was going to run away for it. It looked like Leon was going to have just another banger of a match. He had 7 points in the first. He was 5 for 9 with a couple of aces. Bovand was pretty good as well, too, with 3 points. Lemansky had 3 points as well, going for 2 for 2 with the block. And honestly, Poland just looked like they were rolling. But then in the second, the U.S. kind of changed up their tactics a little bit. They improved their passing. They went up from a 25% positive in the first to a 64% positive in the second, and they really started running their middles. Averill had 4 points. He was 4 for 5 in attack, and Merrick McHenry was 3 for 3 in attack with a block. And the first 3, 4, 5 sets of set number 2 for the United States all went to the middle, and Micah Christensen made a point to really establish that middle, and it really started opening some things up on the outside for the rest of his team. And in the second set, this is kind of where Poland started to falter. Leon went from scoring 7 in the first to going 1 in 7 in the second with just a 14% efficiency, and he ended up getting subbed off in favor of Kamil Semeniuk, which was one of the best moves Poland did in this one because he ultimately led Poland in scoring throughout the match. And at this point, it kind of started to look like the U.S. was going to be able to control the game because they were running their game through the middle, and both Anderson and Jake Haynes started to score. Haynes started to heat up offensively. He had 5 kills in set number 2, going 5 for 8, and also added an ace for 6 total points, and Anderson was 3 for 6. And in the third set, man, it was all Jake Haynes. 9 for 9 in attack, 100%, which is just outstanding from Jake Haynes. And he really, really just jumped out there, put the U.S. on the map, and really gave them control of this match. Anderson was also all right, too. He was 3 for 8 with an ace as well. But there was a bit of a scary moment for Matt Anderson at the end of that third set, got elbowed in the face by Merrick McHenry after sallying after a big block. And this is where maybe one of the big mysteries for the U.S. kind of got revealed a little bit. There was a point, because at this point, Cooper Robinson had already been subbed in for Ethan Champlin. And we heard Karch at the stand basically being like, can we sub 20 back in for 1 because our other outside hitter is hurt? And that other outside hitter they were talking about was, in fact, TJ DeFalco. So DeFalco ultimately did get subbed in, passed a couple of balls. The Americans were able to close out that third set, but he didn't hit. And then afterwards, we heard from people in the stands that DeFalco wasn't hitting in hitting warm-up at all. So it does seem like DeFalco has maybe a bit of a shoulder injury or something that's preventing him to hit. And that's why we really didn't see him at all over the course of the finals. Now, the fourth set is where things really started heating up for Poland. They went to the middle much more. Kubishap, Lemansky once again was 4 for 4 with a block as well. Fornal had 4 points. Semeniuk had 6 points, was 4 for 5 with a block and an ace. But while Poland did control the majority of the fourth set, there was a moment late in the fourth where they subbed in Cole Hartke. Hartke got the block, and the U.S. did take the lead. And someone in the chat during the watch along said themselves that, like, hey, either the U.S. is going to win this in 4 or Poland is going to win this in 5. And ultimately, that's what had happened, because after Poland won that fourth set, you could just tell that the momentum had changed. And it was pretty even for the beginning of the fifth. But unfortunately, the U.S.'s offense kind of unraveled, right? They went 5 for 16 with a negative efficiency in the fifth set. They got blocked 3 times. They also had 3 errors. And the big error was Micah Christensen missing a Taylor Averill on a 31. And from there, it just kind of all unraveled for the United States. And maybe it was a little bit of the fatigue that had got to them, because on Poland's side, they were definitely a little bit fresher, right? You had a Kamil Semeniuk who didn't play the semifinals all that much, who didn't come in till partway through the second set, so he only played 3.5 sets. You had a Wilfredo Leon who actually got subbed in for Bovange at the end, or partway through the fourth set, and so he was playing on the right side, who maybe was a little bit fresher. And ultimately, Poland got a much easier win in the semifinals. We're already back at the hotel watching it and in bed before the United States were even back. And it just all kind of unraveled for the United States, and Poland kind of dominated in that fifth set. 4 points for Kupchak, 4 points for Leon. And it was just a really good day for Poland up and down this roster. And they clinched their second straight VNL title and their third overall. And I have to say, this was a very entertaining match. I've said it time and time again, but this was a really entertaining match. I'm glad I got a chance to watch it. And there's a few things to talk about here. Like, you really have to say that both teams deserved this win. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I think the United States did so well over the course of this entire VNL. Same thing with Poland. And this was honestly a toss-up. It could have gone either way. So I don't want to hear or see any comments about throwing or choking or blaming it on a certain player or whatever it may be. Both of these teams deserved the gold medal, and ultimately only one of them could win. But on the Polish side, you really saw that depth come through. And I mean, it was a little bit surprising. Leon and Bovange were 2 players who have just dominated over the course of this VNL. They were so good in the semifinals, right? Both scoring, 16 points for Leon over the course of the 3 sets, 15 for Bovange. They were outstanding. They dominated Ukraine in the quarterfinals as well, too. And, I really thought, especially after that first set, they were going to be able to run away with it. But I don't think many teams are going to survive the way Poland did when both of your big swingers are out of that game. And the fact that, Poland was able to go to Semeniuk. Semeniuk ended up leading them in scoring. I mean, he was 13 for 23 on the day, hitting a 56% with a 47% efficiency is just absolutely massive. I was a little surprised we didn't see Sasek come in for Bovange, but ultimately moving Leon to the right side, I think was actually a really good idea. Now, this is something that Polish fans have really wanted for a long time, because you got to find a way to have Fornal and Semeniuk and Leon on the court all at the same time. And I ultimately think that might be the best move, because they were running a bit of a 3 outside hitter situation where Semeniuk was actually like blocking and hitting on the right side, despite taking most of the serve receive reps, in reception. So I think that was definitely a long-term play by Gerbich to see like, hey, can this work? Can we run Leon as our opposite in kind of a 3 outside hitter system, not really in a more traditional, opposite role, to be able to have all of them on at the same time if something is happening with Bovanj. And ultimately, we thought saw as a success with Leon scoring 3 points in that 5th set. But when you look at the scores of this Polish team too, right? 6 of their players hit double digits. Semeniuk led with 17. Fornal had 15. Leon had 15. Jakubczak and Lemansky in the middle both had 11. Bovanj had 10. Like, it just shows you how skilled they are ultimately and how good this team is. They just overwhelm you with talent time and time again. And I thought Komenda did such a good job running this offense too. When you look at the attempts per player, Leon leads with 28. Then you have Bovanj with 24, Semeniuk with 23, Fornal with 19, Kupchak with 18, Lemansky with 7. Lemansky was 7 for 7, by the way. 100% perfect with an added 4 blocks. Just an outstanding performance by the 7-footer. But it just shows how tough it is to play against this Polish team, because throw a rock and you can hit a player who can lead them in scoring night in and night out. And like, talk about depth. Not only can you go to the bench and get a guy like Semeniuk, but Lemansky and Jakubczak are like 4 and 5 technically on the depth chart. You've got Kokonowski and Biniak, who are both injured and weren't available for this tournament. You've got Huber, who is another all-time middle who will probably never play for this Polish team again, just because of all the antics that we've seen by him over the years, especially last year at the World Championships and him butting heads with Gerbic. So you're still talking about, even with Huber out of the picture, you're still talking about Lemansky and Jakubczak, who are 3rd and 4th on that depth chart. And like, Lemansky is going 7 for 7 with 4 blocks, massive. Jakubczak 10 for 18. And, who could have imagined Komenda at the beginning of this VNL when Gerbic was like pleading for him to set the middle, Komenda setting the middle 25 times, including 18 attempts to Jakubczak. Just awesome. And then also, too, rounding out that roster, you have Jakub Popivčak. And Popivčak, I thought, was great. I mean, he was tied for the match lead in digs with 12 alongside Eric Shoji. He also passed 48% with 24% perfect. And this was a guy who's just showed up time and time again with big plays for this Polish team. And, you can tell how much confidence they have in him, given the fact that Gornicki isn't even dressed in his libero jersey. He's dressed in a regular jersey to come in and, serve receive at times, because there's no doubt that Piwczak is the number 1 guy for this Polish roster. And now, talking about the MVP, I know there's some people who are questioning Fornal, but to me, I thought it was great. I know Leon and Bovanj really dominated in the quarterfinals and in the semifinals, but each of them, they kind of struggled. They kind of got subbed out. But to me, it was Fornal's consummate leadership, like play in and play out, that really helped Poland move along. And I will say, like, you could sub out Leon and bring in Semeniuk. I don't know if you could sub out Fornal and bring in Semeniuk, because of what Fornal brings in terms of leadership. When his team needed juice, he was giving them juice. When they needed a little bit of edge, he was giving them a little bit of edge. When a player needs to be gassed up, needs a little bit of confidence, it's Fornal, the one who's giving them that confidence. So to me, Fornal is very much the leader of this team. And I love the fact that the MVP went to the player who maybe wasn't the best on the stat sheet, but the eye test kind of gave it away that he was. So yeah, Poland closed out the VNL with a pretty damn good showing. I mean, as I said, they dominated Slovenia in the semifinals. It's probably not even worth talking about because of just how damn good they were and how they just smothered Slovenia and then outlasted the USA in the final. Next up for them is the European Championships, and they're looking to go back-to-back that tournament as well and really cement themselves as the top team in men's volleyball right now. Now, on the American side of things, it was really the Jake Haynes and Matt Anderson show once again, but you have to really applaud this team up and down the lineup for even getting to this point. I did not think they would get past Italy, right? I did not expect them to be able to beat Italy. And furthermore, I didn't expect them to be able to handle Italy in the way they did. I thought Italy's service was going to be, too strong for the USA, and they proved me wrong by just blasting through it with 14 aces. I did expect them, however, to beat Japan. Right? I called 3-1 for the United States against Japan. It ultimately was 3-2 in the best match of the tournament, in my opinion. But I didn't think the US was going to be able to run with Poland in this one, not because they don't have the roster, but just because they didn't have the legs to do it anymore after going to 5 sets like less than 24 hours before. And once again, they proved me wrong. And now for the two-headed monster that is Anderson and Haynes, I mean, Haynes was outstanding. 9 points, 9 for 9 in that third set. He was ridiculous. He was 18 for 33 overall in this match. He had 3 aces as well. And you know what? I think he really proved a lot of people that not only can he play at this level, but he can be the go-to guy. And I don't think there's any debate anymore. This American team does not get to this point without Jake Haynes. Bar none. That is fully understandable now. He was hands down one of the best players. And honestly, he might have been the best opposite player for any team over the course of this entire VNL. He was that good. It's hard to imagine that Haynes is going to be headed to the Greek League next year because he's going to be far too good to play again, because he's going to be far too good to play for a team like Olympiacos. And I would not be surprised if someone else in like Italy or Poland or maybe even Russia or Japan swoops in and picks up Jake Haynes after this performance he has shown us in this VNL. And now the question about Jake Haynes, in my opinion, has never been about the play. For me, he's been a constant 20 bucket no matter what. But the big question was always, can he keep his temper in check? And I thought he did a really good job of that. However, there was one clip that surfaced recently here on Twitter, and it's a fan video of him getting blocked, picking up the ball, kind of chucking it towards the ref, yelling at the ref, then Anderson immediately grabbing him. And to me, it's that last thing there of Matt Anderson grabbing him, being a complete, leader for this team, identifying the situation, throwing him in, and you can just see it just kind of quells Jake Haynes's, anger right away. And that is what I think is really important here, is that the United States has that proper leadership hierarchy to take care of Haynes's temper. Because the thing is that you don't want to change him. You want that passion. You want that fire. It just needs to be guided properly. And when you've got guys like Matt Anderson and Micah Christensen and Eric Shoji who have been there before, you're really going to be able to control that. And most importantly, you've got Karch Karai, who is the ultimate GOAT, but he is another passionate, really fiery type of competitor. So he's also going to understand Haynes's mentality and not going to want to, douse that fire too much. It's like there was a moment in that first set where I was like, oh, Haynes doesn't really look like he has it. We're not seeing that same fire. And it's once he started getting going again, like he needs that fire to be going. And Karch really understands that. So I think the United States is doing a really good job of channeling that energy in a good way. There's going to be times like this where, maybe it gets out of hand a little bit, but right away, Anderson recognizes that and keeps him in check, and that's awesome. And speaking of Anderson, I mean, man, what more? What more do you want from a 38-year-old who's going to go out there and absolutely ball for you over the course of this VNL? And there's at one point someone in the chat being like, I don't think Poland can win because Leon's too old. Leon's 32. Anderson's 38, And I know there's a lot of comparisons between, Wilfredo Leon and LeBron just because of the physicality that they play with, in their respective sports. And I think you can make that comparison with the LeBron's longevity with Anderson. Actually, no, scratch that. I would think Matt Anderson is the Sidney Crosby of volleyball because Matt Anderson just has that longevity and he has that leadership and he's still continuing to produce. I mean, he went out there in the finals. He went 18 for 30, hitting a 60% with a 50% efficiency, but he also passed 38 balls. He was targeted 38 times and he passed 50% positive and 16% perfect. That's crazy. That's outstanding. Show me another 38-year-old who's out there doing that. I don't know if you can. That's wild. And I mean, up and down this roster, I think you've got guys who have proved themselves. Of course, you've got Michael Christensen, arguably the best setter in the world, continues to prove that. He lost the handle a little bit in that fifth set, and that's just too bad. But Taylor Averill, I thought played great, especially in the finals, played some of the best ball we've seen from him probably since Paris 2024. Merrick McHenry really proved that he can play at this elite level. 14 points in this final, 11 for 17, hitting a 65% with a 58% efficiency. He also had 3 stuff blocks, which was absolutely huge. Ethan Champlin really stepped up over the course of this finals, and we see now why, because TJ is probably injured. And I did not think after the way he played that first set that he was going to end with 9 points, but he was, really strong. Cooper Robinson stepped up, not so much in this match, but in the semifinal against Japan in a really big way. And that was great. And, Eric Shoji continues to be fantastic. Like Micah Ma'a came in off the bench to serve and made plays defensively. Like this United States team has kind of proven to anyone that they can be a legitimate threat come the World Championships and the Olympics. And remember, DeFalco wasn't healthy for this one. You still have Aaron Russell back home, and you also have Thomas Jaeschke out there potentially to rejoin this roster. So the US's look like they're cooking and to be an elite team when they host the Olympics in 2028. And the US had the toughest road in this VNL finals too. They had Italy, Japan, and Poland. That is hands down the toughest teams in men's volleyball, the toughest teams who were at the finals, and they took care of business, and they were very close to taking down Poland as well. So there was a lot of question marks around this American team coming into this VNL, and I think they have answered every single one of them. And as I mentioned, I thought the USA-Japan match was phenomenal. It was the best match of this VNL. And also at the same time, shout out to everyone who joined me for the watch-alongs over the course of the weekend. We had a peak concurrent of 1,000 people for the finals between the US and Poland, and then a peak concurrent of 1,400 people, which is just fucking crazy for the USA-Japan match. And I really appreciate it. There was channels out there which much larger followings with literally 10 times the following of Volleyball Source, and they had much smaller watch-alongs. We were the biggest watch-along on YouTube for the VNL finals, and I really appreciate everyone who came to hang out. The chat was lively the entire time. Pure Volleyball Source fashion. There was some chirping going on. It was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to do some more with you guys. So really appreciate everyone who came out. But this match was so much fun to watch, and it was just a banger. And I did think the US was going to win this one, and ultimately they did. I thought it was going to be 3-1. What ended up being 3-2. And it is just really difficult to beat the same team twice in one tournament, right? And oftentimes, right, that's why teams don't really go undefeated. It's so hard to go undefeated because you're probably going to play a team earlier in the tournament and then you're going to play them later on. Like we see that at the Olympics or the World Championships, that teams who have lost earlier in the tournament, look at the Italian men, they lose to Belgium in the group stage. They end up winning the tournament altogether last year at the World Championships. It's just really, really difficult. And now this one was a really close one. It was kind of opposite of what we saw from USA and Poland in the final, where the US dominated the first set. Japan came back in the second and third, mostly like in the second set, it was mostly by running the middle. In the third set, they were running their opposite, and Yuji Nishida, who went off for like 8 for 10 in the third. And the US took back in control by really just overwhelming Japan overall with just their talent. And now what Japan did so well in this match is, one, they passed the ball really well. Overall, they were 47% positive, 22% perfect. They didn't serve the ball great. They didn't put too much pressure on the United States, only 2 aces to 18 errors, which is like a 1-to-9 ace to error ratio, which is not what you want to see. But Japan also made 66 digs. And that's huge because the United States only made 41. So what Japan did so good is they just really prolonged rallies. They kept them going and put the pressure on the United States. Now, the United States has always been, throughout this 2026 VNL, one of the most efficient teams, but they led the match with 35 errors. And that was also the case against Poland as well, too. Although that number kind of got skewed in the fifth set. It was pretty close. It was 34 in favor of the United States in the finals to 29 for Poland, where it was 35 for the US and 25 for Japan. And Japan was just playing patient and trying to wait out the United States. And ultimately, it almost worked. But what the US did so good is they shut down Ron Takahashi. Now, Ron, in my opinion, was the MVP for the entirety of the VNL. I thought he was the best player throughout the entire thing. But the United States did such a good job really making it difficult for him to swing. And they're really prioritizing him in the block. Well, that's why Japan was able to open up Larry and Yamauchi throughout this match. Larry was 6 for 7. Yamauchi was 6 for 8. They were combined 12 for 15 down the middle because the American blockers were read blocking to the Japanese middle blockers with a priority of getting over to the left side. And it was the same thing when Ishikawa was in the front row. They were really watching the pipe and making sure that Rand wasn't coming up the middle and kind of letting Ishikawa score. So that's why we see, Ishikawa with 18, Nishida with 19. Like Nishida was 8 for 10 in that third set and was just so damn good. But I thought the United States just did such a good job of shutting down Ran. And Ran, on paper only had 13 points for probably one of his weakest matches, but he passed really, really well. 52% and positive and 28% perfect on 25 targets. Also made 14 digs, which led the match alongside Ogawa. And the United States, once again, that two-headed monster. 24 points for Jake Haynes. He was 20 for 33, hitting 61% with a 48% efficiency. Gross. And then you have Matt Anderson going 21 for 40, hitting a 43% with a 45% efficiency. So that two-headed monster was just so good. Also, shout out to Cooper Robinson, who was really good down the stretch. He got subbed in the fourth set in place of Ethan Champlin. He started that fifth set and it started a little bit slow, but towards the end, he was really, really good. He was 6 for 13 in the match and finished the match with 7 points, including a big ace. And I mean, you got to feel for Japan. You got to feel for Japan because after being up 2-1, looking like they had the advantage, they did go down 8-5 in that fifth set, but they worked their way back. And there was some phenomenal rallies in that fifth set. And there was one where they had a challenge, got the challenge, went up 12-11 for their first point. And then at 12-12, Ethan Champlin went back, coming in off the bench. He hadn't been on since partway through the fourth and served an absolute beauty of an ace to the back line to give the United States the lead again. And just the cojones on Ethan Champlin. And in my opinion, if Champ doesn't go back and serve that ace in that moment, Japan wins this match. So that's just how close it was for Japan to continue their winning streak and going to the finals. It was literally like millimeters away. Like if Champ misses that serve, I think Japan goes to the finals. And now ultimately, I don't even need to talk about the other semifinal match because Poland just dominated Slovenia. And that's exactly why right after this match, I said I thought Japan was going to lose to Slovenia in the bronze medal match. And that's exactly what happened. Slovenia won 3-1 for their first ever medal at the VNL. And now I did not watch this match at all. I have not seen it at all. This is kind of one of the first times that I see even the scores on it. I guess Mujanovic had 24, Mozic had 23, Ran got back on his horse and scored 20. But here's why I said that after the USA match. As I mentioned, it is really, really tough to beat the same team twice at the VNL. So Slovenia lost to Japan in the intercontinental round. You also had the fact that Slovenia lost to Japan, when was it, in 2024? Yeah, in 2024 in the finals as well. But past that, but then there's also the physical part of it. Slovenia had come off of a 3-dong, so they only played 3 sets the day before, much earlier in the day. Like the Slovenia-Poland match started at like 3 a.m. my time, and then the Japan and USA match started 4.5 hours later at 7:30 a.m. So there was a much larger time for Slovenia to rest and recover, getting ready for the match. But then there's also the emotional component. And I honestly think that was the most important. And you could tell that Ishikawa was just crushed, was absolutely gutted after the loss to the United States when he did his interview with Key Michael afterwards. And you can understand why, right? This Japanese team is only the 3rd team all time to go undefeated at the VNL coming into the semifinals. They were the first men's team to do it. The other teams were Brazil in 2024 and Italy last year in 2025. Brazil did the exact same thing. Right, the Brazilian women in 2024 did the exact same thing where they went undefeated, 13-0, lost in the semis, and lost in the bronze medal match. And the emotional component is a few harder things. It's way, way harder to come back from a 3-2 loss than it is a 3-0 loss. Right? A 3-0 loss, you got blown out. And that's exactly what happened to Slovenia. They got blown out. They weren't even close. They didn't even score 20 against Poland. So it's really easy to just, we're going to brush that off. We know we're going to be better tomorrow. And that's the end of the story. Whereas when you lose 3-2 and when you lose 15-13, every single little mistake, you're going to run over it on your head. There's so many, what ifs, could have, would have's after that match. And it was definitely difficult for Japan. And on top of that, when you come into this match at 13-0, when you have been undefeated the way Japan has been, you have that expectation of going off and winning that final. You have that expectation. They came to China with gold in mind. They went to sleep on Friday night, envisioning themselves beating the United States and playing for gold. And once again, that's like, there's nothing wrong with that. No one like Japan just lost a very good game. It could have gone either way, right? There's no one to blame. Like there's no finger pointing, anything like that. They just lost a game to a really good team. Once you get to the semifinals, all bets are off. All bets are off once you get to the semifinals because anyone can beat anyone. And Japan was dreaming for that gold medal and it was no longer possible and they had to go play for bronze. Whereas on the other side of the net for Slovenia, right, after the way they played against Poland, it's like, hey, we still get to go play for bronze. And on top of all that, Slovenia is one of 8 teams who have ever made the semifinals at the VNL. They're the only one of those 8 teams who have never medaled. So this is a first ever medal for Slovenia. So it was so much easier for this Slovenian team to bounce back and to be like, hey, we get to go win a medal for Slovenia. We get to win a bronze medal for Slovenia, and that's never been done before. Whereas Japan had to play with that weight of like, God damn it, it should have been us in that final. And that's really, really tough. So I feel for the Japanese team because they deserved it. They definitely deserved it, right? They were 1-2 points away from being in that final. And now who knows what would have happened there? I think Poland maybe would have dominated them. Japan beat Poland in week number 1 when they had a much different roster. But still, I know it was difficult for Japan. It was definitely difficult for their fans. And I really hope as fans, you guys give them a little bit of grace. And the same thing. I thought Ryan was the best player over the course of this VNL. I really did think he was the MVP, no doubt in my mind. I thought he was the best consistent player from day one over the course of the 2 months. 2 months is way too long, by the way. Way too fucking long. We need to talk about that. I know it won't happen, but we need to talk about that. So ultimately, I think you need to give so much credit to the Japanese men for the VNL they did have. And I really hope their fans give them a little grace because this is a massive turnaround compared to them crashing out in group stage of the 2025 World Championships to the way they played this year in the VNL. And I really hope their fans recognize that. Well, that pretty much wraps up my 2026 VNL coverage, although maybe not completely. I think we'll do some dream teams for the men and the women. We'll also do the grades for the men and women as well. But really appreciate everyone who was along for the ride, whether you're an old fan or a new fan. Appreciate you all tuning in. Once again, big shout out to everyone who came in and joined for the watch-alongs. They were a lot of fun, and I hope to do some more in the future. And yeah, come join us over on the Volleyball Source Discord, the best online volleyball community in the world. And we'll be back soon. Peace.